Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back on this beautiful day, another post-workout video. Some of you may have noticed that I haven't been putting out content quite as frequently as I was before, and that's for one reason, really because the projects that we're into, the community, the stuff we're talking about, is in somewhat of a holding pattern. And when there isn't really anything of value to say, I don't want to be saying it, especially if you guys have your notifications switched on and you're receiving, notifications when I do put out a new video. It's annoying for me when, I get dinged about a video that ultimately is just scraping the barrel of stuff to talk about right now. And I don't want to be doing that. If I put a video out, it's because I think that it's important and it's worth it. And your time is valuable too. I don't want you watching something that ultimately isn't bringing you any value and it's, insubstantial. Anyway, with that being said, I do think this video is bringing substance. And it's really based on my own personal opinion, as everything, on some advice. And not financial advice, just advice about how I think many of us should be processing mentally what's going on with the market right now, what's going on with the community, and prioritize accordingly. Now, with V4 announcements and happenings and V3 and the quote-unquote delays that have been going on recently, it has been exhausting, to say the least, to see a lot of the negativity that's been flooding the marketplace from a lot of the weak hands out there. And I say that with the utmost conviction. It's not just people on Reddit and Twitter, it's in my own network too. People who don't necessarily have either the background, the experience, or, the right mental attitude to process this the right way. And so it's really important to put a lot of these folks in their place a little bit, even internally. You don't even have to say anything. As long as you're thinking about things the right way, it's going to be valuable for you. And so, I've seen through Twitter, people messaging me even seem to be fixated on the wrong things. Like they're prioritizing the delays and how Richard Heart is a liar. And, we were promised this 2 years ago. What? I honestly do not care. If that is what you're prioritizing right now, I'm not the contact to send that to, or I'm not, this isn't the community for you. We all have to kind of, understand why we're in crypto, why we're in certain projects. So not just crypto, but anything. If you are a part of the Richard Heart ecosystem at any level or plan to be, and your main motivator for doing that is to make money, as the most of us, that certainly is the main driving factor, then why on earth would you want to prioritize how dishonest you think Richard Heart is because things have delayed, or, not really understanding that he probably is timing the market and it's for good reason. I know a lot of us really wanted this to launch a while ago, or a lot of people anticipated it launching a while ago. But 2023 is not a selling year. Just focus accordingly. You don't need to vent out loud if you get frustrated about the fact that it isn't launched yet. It doesn't matter. If it's the end of 2024, 25, and we're having this conversation, hell yeah, we're going to be, no one wants to wait till the next cycle. But right now, we want to be making sure that this thing launches at the most opportune time where it's going to make us the most money. And so any delays right now are irrelevant, certainly to me. I really don't give a shit if this thing takes another couple months, because I know that, the time to capitalize on it isn't now. I've noticed too that, and I'm sure a lot of you have noticed this too, when looking through Twitter or Reddit or any of the communities that we're involved in, a lot of the expectations that were once, real high, we're looking at thousands of X's, they've kind of curtailed off a little bit as people seem to be justifying why they don't think the product will do well. And I think this is really more a reaction to their own frustrations and market sentiment being guided right now by the very vocal kind of weak-handed people, as opposed to the folks whose confidence hasn't really changed. There's no real reason for that conviction to change. It's just the fact that certain people are being louder than others. And yeah, there's a little bit of, effort being put in perhaps by other communities, other projects that, are looking to muddy the waters a little bit and start kind of curtailing a lot of that early enthusiasm. So perhaps they're able to get a piece of the Pulse chain or the Pulse X or the Hex Pi when things are launched a little cheaper. Those games happen all the time as well. But just so everyone's aware, nothing has really changed at all in what the unique selling points and the value that this community has going for it when it does launch. the whole benefit or the whole motivating factor, the whole the hopium in this community comes from the value propositions for the mid to long term as much as anything else. And so even if this thing comes out and shakes out a bunch of weak hands out of the gates, it doesn't really matter, especially for anyone got in the sacrifice phase. Like, you could be the most weak-handed person in the world and you've got the perfect excuse to let that ride because you got in super early and you don't think this is going to come out at multiples of its launch price or acclimate at multiples its launch price, let alone the sacrifice price in the next year or so. Yeah, it will. There's a reason why a lot of us experienced folks in this industry are very gung-ho about this whole ecosystem. It has something, aside from its vertically integrated kind of presentation, it has a lot of unique selling points that we've talked about ad nauseum that hasn't changed yet. Just because certain people are being vocal about the fact that they're frustrated it hasn't launched yet, they're not thinking about the bigger picture and they're prioritizing the wrong things. I can say this, I can be as redundant as you like and keep saying this point, but those of you who aren't prioritizing in a way that you perhaps should, if money or returns are your motivating factor, some of you folks this won't resonate with, and you'll feel even more frustrated. That's okay too. Just don't tell me. I really don't care. This may be not the community for you. We're in this to make money. I'm not to get frustrated at someone for not launching at the right time. His Richard Hart's tardiness is not what I'm fixating on right now. Anyway, another thing I wanted to bring to everyone's attention is when it comes to returns, when it comes to money, especially for, a lot of people out there didn't really have a lot of funds, and if they got involved in any of the sacrifice phases, or even in Hex, and they've got like $1,000 in there, but yet still being vocal about, wanting to sell at a 20 or a 50 or even 100x. Let me give you some personal advice right now. There aren't too many opportunities in life, in the crypto space even, that provide us with an opportunity to potentially make a lot of returns. If you have put in $1,000, I don't care what you do for a living, how much money you make, $1,000 is something you're able to make for most of us. It's not a sum of money to be concerned about in the long run. If you have a job or you're able to get a job, we have to come from some kind of base level, and I don't care who this offends. I mean, for most of you who that does offend, that we're talking about $1,000 being something you could essentially throw away, you need to change your life a little bit, because if you're banking on $1,000 changing your life, there's probably some other decisions in your life that you need to change about, because I will say this: if you've got involved in any of these sacrifice phases with $1,000, that's a lottery ticket that you should let ride and ride and ride. So many people out there are, in hindsight, looking back at the glorious returns that a lot of the hexagons made when that first launched, and seeing that, oh wow, this did 1,000x, 2,000x, 10,000x. Oh, I wish I got involved in that. There is 0 point being early to something if you don't have the strength and conviction to capitalize on it correctly. You think the hexagons that made so much life-changing money had weak hands? Do you think there wasn't an even more amount of negativity going on than there is right now? We had the whole Hex a scam narrative running at that point. I wasn't involved back then, right? But you can imagine the folks who were holding there, that did continue to hold through all of that because they had the conviction and they weren't easily swayed. Fickle mindsets are not the mindsets that make the money here. If you analyze the fundamentals, you see the unique selling points of a project, you are convinced the value it's going to bring down the line, then you should have conviction and confidence to hold until you're happy with the return that you have. And let me tell you this, even if you put $1,000 in, getting a 20x or even 100x back is not going to change your life. And for some of you, $100,000 may be a lot of money, and I definitely understand that. I remember when it was a lot of money to me, and a bit of valuable advice that I'd had at the time, and maybe not so much advice, just learnings, I guess, from multiple sources that had me understand that in order to make money, you have to have higher expectations of the amount of money you're going to make. And I know that sounds obvious, but if you start thinking about money in a bit more of a throwaway capacity, and that sounds ridiculous, I know, but for those people who save 100,000, get a hold of 100,000, think about 100,000 as being a huge sum of money that will change their life and it's insurmountable to get, those are not the guys that are going to be set for life, or the girls that are going to be set for life. Those are the folks with very low expectations. $100,000 now, it's not even what it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. We live in a very inflationary world right now, especially with what's going on in the larger ecosystem, in the larger kind of macroeconomic system, where, we've just had a bill passed with Biden about housing and, basically taxing those of us an additional money whenever we buy a house if we have good credit score. I mean, the system is, you can do your own research there. I know a lot of you don't necessarily follow the markets quite as closely as others, but needless to say, I mean, in my opinion, we're heading towards some kind of financial crisis. And we use that word term loosely. I mean, to whatever extent. I don't think we're going to be, throwing ourselves from buildings. But I do think that the value of the dollar especially is going down even more. I do think that it's going to be a lot harder for many people to process just what that means in terms of how they value certain amounts of money, the type of housing they want to buy, how they set themselves up for success and residual income going into the future. All of these are things that you need to get your head around very quickly. And so if you have a relatively small amount of money, and it is a relatively small amount of money, like $1,000 into a sacrifice phase, selling out of that prematurely when you have an opportunity like a Pulse Chain, a Pulse X, a Hex, I don't think is a smart move. I think you should be adding more to it, to be quite honest with you, until we find, and listen, I'll be vocal about a project or a community that I have, a lot of respect and conviction for. Until that point happens, I'm not going to talk about anything else, because right now the number one play for me in crypto, in investments in general, is the Pulse Chain ecosystem. I think they're all going to do very, very well, whether you believe in that kind of fundamental bonding that should be taking place between all of the ecosystem, or whether you think that it's going to be driven by other factors. There are so many motivating factors to getting involved into that ecosystem from a returns perspective that it's probably, it definitely is something for me, certainly within the crypto space, the investment world, that I'll be building around in terms of just having real high expectations for its return. And that means not necessarily caring what it does during 2023. If there are good buying opportunities, I'll buy back in. I'll continue to buy in, as I have with Hex, because those people who are now saying, oh, I should have sold Hex at 12 cents recently, or I should have sold at 10. Again, that's a trading mentality. Lengthen your horizon here. Sometimes, always in hindsight, it looks like an obvious decision to make, but for most of us, as it rises and people sell out and it continues, you price yourself out. You're not in a hurry right now. Stop relying on this money as instant returns, and start prioritizing it as a 2024, 2025 positioning play. We talked about this before. Nothing's changed. And I know a lot of you are frustrated, and some of this is difficult to hear. It's easy to say that, you should prioritize having larger amounts of money and be a little bit more dismissive about kind of what it means to make a $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 back from your initial investment. But that comes with many different driving factors in your mentality. It's getting a part-time job. It's saving a little bit more, every month. Having that auto deposit going into, an exchange, so that you can able to transfer that accordingly and put it as dry powder, or buy into a Hex or any of the other projects that will notoriously do better than dollars right now. There's a lot of information I'm throwing at you, and my point is right now, for anyone looking to, within this ecosystem, for anyone looking to make some major money, to get some real big returns, it's going to take patience, it's going to take conviction, and it's going to take prioritizing the correct things. You want this launched at the right time. You don't want to get weighed down by, just getting hung on the fact that it's delayed more than it should have been. Who cares? We wouldn't have sold right now anyway. You worried that it's not going to come out? I really don't see that happening. So when it does come out, I want it to be at the best possible moment, so that we are able to capitalize throughout our entire journey in these positions. And for me, I'm not going to be selling for quite a while. I'll let you know when I'm selling, as soon as I think it could be an opportunity for some people to sell. But with both Pulse Chain, Pulse X, even Hex, there's some big returns to be made, and it's not going to be at 20 to a 50x. People seem to be getting scared off right now just by the fact that there's a little bit negativity, or, as I say, there's vocal people who don't really process things in the same way, being, overly negative, and all of a sudden now I'm seeing narratives like, oh, the market cap is coming back as a factor that does really exist, make an impact, and it does matter. We've gone through all this with Hex. We've seen it. The same. Now's not the time to start questioning those same things, because I'm telling you, the real money, the big players in this game, the folks who do understand this, the people who are not being vocal right now, are kind of rubbing their fingers together, because these times when the weak hands are going to be selling, it's going to make a better entry point for a lot of us. And I don't want anyone in this community falling for the same traps. It's always, I put a tweet out the other time where it's like, look, there's blood in the streets, certainly from a sentimental level, or a sentiment level, I should say. And it usually amounts to a good time to capitalize when people are in a inaccurately negative mindset. I think this is one of them. Even a good time to get into Hex, in my opinion. Again, people seem to be thinking that, oh, it's just come down and it's no longer a 100th of a penny. It doesn't matter, that we're still going up. Crypto is becoming a more prevalent part of everyone's life. You know what's going on with all the banks right now, and how, the economic kind of, what's the word? A lot of these institutions and I guess just the fiat currency economy is adapting and changing. Whether the US is slightly behind now, it doesn't really matter. It's going to take someone maybe coming in with a bit of a fresher mindset, but eventually it's only going in one way, and that's moving away from being devalued within your fiat currency and moving into a store of value, or a value facilitator that is based in the crypto world, whatever that may be at the time. And right now we're in a community where that's going to be huge. So I've talked. Again, I know this is pretty sporadic. I didn't really plan this video, but I just saw a few comments and people people in my network that are reaching out saying, oh, what's going on with this? And it's just exhausting, and all of us within this world, I'm sure many of you are the go-to crypto person within your own kind of group. And it's the educating process is one that gets tiring, especially when nothing's really changed yet. They're being influenced by the media. It's good in the long run. I get it. If everyone was still singing the same positive tune, then there wouldn't really be any opportunity for the rest of us. All those same people are going to be the same ones, tenfolded, that are going to be buying back in when we start seeing some major green candles. They're the ones pushing it from a 1,000x to a 10,000x in some of these projects. And so look, I'm excited for that. I just want to make sure that everyone watching this in our community right now, who is early, who is taking the time to learn about this right now, who maybe doesn't have huge amounts of money in the market, maybe you have a lot of money in the market, it doesn't really matter. The mentality is the same. And what I want to say is that, for those who don't necessarily have a lot of money in the market, and I'm talking like $1,000 to $10,000, let's say, you don't want to be setting out prematurely. You don't want to be taking early gains on something that could be, one of the prodigious cryptocurrencies in the next couple of years. Don't fall for the same tricks that, in hindsight, it's easy to say that, people with Hex didn't, and Ethereum and Bitcoin and any of the projects that really kind of gained. In my opinion, this is definitely going to be one of them. And so, again, stay vigilant. Turn your Twitter off. It doesn't matter. Like I say, it could launch tomorrow, and we're not selling for a good while. Maybe there's some getting in opportunities that aren't too many multiples more than the sacrifice phase. Even if it drops to sacrifice phase, great. What a time to get in. But that's also the time that most people won't get in. They'll get in when we start seeing some major green candles. And so that's my advice to you. Stay vigilant, stay positive, prioritize the right things. At the end of the day, all we want is money. And if you don't have enough money and you're relying on the money you're pulling out from crypto, get a part-time job. I'm telling you, do whatever you can to avoid, and tons of us are in the same mentality where, oh damn, we'd love to have some money. Maybe we put a bit too much into the system right now. We just really want. Don't think of it like that. Think of it as you've positioned early, and you'll have to work a little bit harder now for that to pay off. But the worst thing you can do is sell out of your positions right now and remove your opportunity, because there's only so much opportunity we're going to have in the crypto space, whether it ends in the next cycle, the cycle after, whenever it is. There is, regardless of how it evolves, I think it's going to evolve in a way that makes crypto a lot more stable and even more of a part of our kind of natural economy. But it is going to take away a lot of the opportunities that we are able to capitalize on now in cowboy land, before we have a lot of the limitations set as they were in the fiat currency markets, where only the rich are able to really capitalize. And so let's make ourselves rich. All right, guys.